Oxford University, the Oxford Debating Society, is meant to be, an august organisation, a bastion of free speech, democracy, enlightened thought, but it was hijacked by jihadists, quite simply. I still think it was the right thing to do, to go there, to debate, because I don't think they were necessarily debating their opponents or those in the crowd, those that were cheering essentially for the murderers, butchers and rapists of Hamas, but for everyone else that was watching them, and to expose those people that do reject Israel's right to exist, that do cheer on the crimes of groups like Hamas under the guise of some kind of enlightened thought of free speech. So I think they were right to do it, and I certainly applaud them for doing so.
Unbelievable to think that this is the level of debate, how things descend into chaos at an institution like Oxford. You've just come back, Arsen, from Canada, addressing the Canadian Parliament. Concerns, of course, about anti-Semitism, the uptick around the globe since the 7th of October. Tell us more.
It was a surreal experience. As I was actually packing to go to Canada, my wife had asked me, "Are you going to have security?" And I thought for a second, what is she talking about? I'm literally flying in from a war zone, but at the same time I was as if flying into another war zone. And I was there in Montreal during those riots, and they were just harrowing. It was, it's hard not to draw parallels to what happened in Amsterdam. Right. And when I spoke to leaders there from all levels of the political echelon, I told them unless corrective action is taken, there will be a repeat on the streets of Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, what happened in Amsterdam. The community is under assault. I spoke to students, they're scared. They're incredibly brave and courageous for standing up, but they're scared. The Jewish community feels abandoned. It's as if, enough promises from the government, it's nice to condemn anti-Semitism. It's nice to say that it's not part of our society, but it's so entrenched into the society there, and the government is not acting. At one point, I was speaking at the Toronto City Council, and I asked them, how can the police not act when you hear these protests and calls for globalized intifada? And they said to me, well, it depends on intent. And that really harks back to what we saw, if you remember, with the congressional hearings when Elise Stefanik, soon-to-be American ambassador to the UN, grilled the heads of top universities.
Diabolical, what happened there.
Yeah, genocide depends on context, and it's the same situation here. So I think the community is fed up. They feel abandoned by the government. Israel feels abandoned by the government, and quite frankly, it feels like Canada has abandoned their own values.
Well, Justin Trudeau was meeting with Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago. One wonders if that featured in their discussions. But it brings me to my next point, and that is what the Trump administration could mean for the fight against anti-Semitism. We're talking about Oxford, we're talking about Canada, Amsterdam, and of course US campuses as well. Your sense of what things could look like post the 20th of January in terms of having Jews in America feel safe?
Look, I'm cautiously optimistic in knowing that there is a sense of unpredictability in terms of what will happen, but we certainly need to judge in terms of what we have, and that includes the people that have been appointed to high-level cabinet positions, and they're all incredibly staunch friends and allies, supporters of Israel, who have been unwavering in speaking out against anti-Semitism. And we have to look at also what the president himself, or president-elect, has said. One of his first statements in the days after the election, they said that they will take accreditation away and take funding away from those universities that receive federal funding but yet continue to not only engage in anti-Semitism but refuse to take action. So I think there will be positive steps in terms of not just on campuses but elsewhere and in the international arena, which is so critical as well, including at the UN and elsewhere. So time will tell, but I think the initial steps are quite positive.